So welcome to your next workshop. I hope you have had a very productive day so far on this awesome virtual Greek Startup Greece Week. And before we begin, we just wanted to say thank you to, a big thank you to the Startup Greece Week team, Thanos Paraskos and Ioana Rusu, who we've been coordinating with to bring this to life. We're very honored to join the lineup of this awesome entrepreneurship week, and we hope that you, after joining our workshop, will leave with some tips and best practices to bring your venture to life. So a quick introduction to our schedule today. We'll start with introductions about us, so you know who you're spending the next hour with. And then we will go into the business model canvas, which is the fundamental framework that will help you bring your idea to life and organize all of the thoughts that are floating around in your head. And then we will end with a little tidbit on our buyer personas. So a small section on the workshops that we actually usually run here in Greece. Specifically, once you have your idea organized in the business model canvas, then you can start focusing on exactly how to target your buyers and how to organize your thoughts there. And then we'll end with wrap up and questions. And since this is an open conversation, if you have any questions throughout the workshop, feel free to, I think the best way might be to message us or just, give us a shout and we'll stop and answer your question. So, introduction to us. We are The Port, and we are a marketing consultancy and business consultancy that is supporting Greek and American startups. And I am the founder, Lucy Sue. I'm based in Greece. I moved here to Athens 3 years ago from New York City, coming from a background in IBM in a Series B $40 million venture-backed startup, and just generally a strong passion for startups and emerging markets. So I've been here since 2017, putting my skills to the test in a very different market. And the result is The Port, which I built 2 years ago, and we've since grown into a team that is very enthusiastically working with local startups across all industries. And I will now pass it over to my teammate and our marketing coordinator and magician at The Port, Vasiliki, to introduce herself and share a little bit more about our work.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you today, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Vasiliki. I'm based in the US, in Minnesota, originally from Greece and Cyprus. So I joined The Port in September. Lucy and Tanaya, who's our project manager. I was really excited about our mission, which is to bridge the American market with the Greek. And so since then, I've been the behind the scenes of our marketing initiatives. And so everything that you see out there about The Port, we're putting together and relaying our story and trying to do it in a way that reaches all of you. So really excited that you're interested in learning more about our work and how we can help you. That's a little bit about me. So The Port, I touched on it. Essentially, we are bridging American expertise with Greek creativity. We're a marketing, consulting, and business advisory firm, and we're big on the exchange of knowledge between the two markets. And so that's what you'll see across our website and our social. We're looking to share out just the latest and greatest, whether it's coming from the Greece or the US. We want to have that conversation. So that's The Port. And I'll just go back to that other slide really quick.
Okay.
So a really interesting and exciting opportunity that we have is to lead the conversations across the two countries and markets. And so here we just wanted to highlight that in 2019, the CSR conference that happened in Athens, we were there, and that's something that we're highlighting and talking about in our work. And then on the other side of the Atlantic, we're having similar conversations in New York and that's a panel that Lucy did about women in tech.
And in terms of our clients, also, just so you know, the expertise that is backing this workshop is we've had the privilege over the last couple of years to work with a range of both Greek startups as well as American startups. And so the insights that you will get from this presentation, which we will get into in just a couple of minutes, are coming from the real world experiences of having worked with companies and just the best practices and the frameworks that have helped companies grow and Greek companies grow. So we hope it's valuable for you as well. And before we dive in, also just a quick, really passionate about our team and myself personally, really passionate about the Greek startup ecosystem. And again, just want to emphasize how awesome it is to be here with you guys right now. Truly the next generation of the Greek startup ecosystem that is going to disrupt the environment in ways that we look forward to seeing. So whatever your idea is, we are going to take this time to help you walk through it and hopefully bring it to life. So before we go into the business model canvas, it's important to start with the vision. So if you followed any business influencers or any companies, vision is pretty much a major buzzword that you will hear, but it's also a very important one. So for the sake of this conversation in this workshop, vision is the ability, and specifically your ability, to think about or plan the future with your imagination and wisdom. And so this obviously is a very high level concept and is something that is fairly qualitative, but it is fundamental before you even dive into any frameworks or start building any revenue models and even coding your product, because the vision that you set will dictate the direction of every single decision that you make. So just a quick overview. We know that you range in experience in terms of being, a student, a first-time founder, maybe you have an idea that you already developed, but wherever you are, it's always useful to kind of return to your vision and clarify exactly what direction you're trying to go towards. So a quick assessment, let's say, is through three main categories. First, understanding what your strengths are in terms of skills, interests, and environment. What are you bringing to the table? What will benefit how has your environment shaped you, and how can you make an impact on the greater environment, the greater market, your specific industry? And then second, of course, what drives you? What is it that's going to get you out of bed every single day? Is the idea that you have a great moneymaker, but that's it? It's going to take more than just a simple business plan. It also takes the actual true investment of your time, energy, and your passion into bringing your vision to life. And then finally, what is your untapped potential? And of course, the untapped potential of the market and your environment around you, so that you can build, scale, and grow your venture. Because at the end of the day, a personal favorite quote of mine is, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. So make sure that you set that vision, make it very specific, make it very clear, and then take all of the steps that you need to get from point A to point B. So to get to point B, now Vasiliki will dive into the business model canvas.
Great. So this is the first of the two frameworks that we're going to share with you today. And this is a really exciting one because a lot of startups and founders, a lot of times it's confusing. You don't know where to begin. You might have the vision, like Lucy mentioned, but then what's next? I think that's a really important question that a lot of times people ask themselves and they're not quite sure where to go. So this is that place to go. It's a strategic management and lean startup template. It was created by a founder himself, and essentially it highlights those building blocks that everyone should be considering for their business. So whether you're in the beginning, you're just starting out, you have that vision laid out, and you're looking to see what you do next, this is where to go. Or let's say you already have your business in place and it's running, you still should check in with the business model canvas, because it can be a really great sound check. It can tell you what you're missing, if there are any gaps in your business planning. And so how it works, the last bit is there are 9 key building blocks. They're all related to different things, and we'll go into that next. So we wanted to kind of break it down a little bit simpler than the 9 key building blocks to begin with. So here you'll find the 4 themes. And so I can share a little bit about what each of the themes are. And we're gonna, if you think about your body, we wanted to use the analogy of each of these is a really key organ, and it's key to the larger organism to bring your vision to life. So every part of it needs attention, and then we can start with the value propositions, and that's the heart of your body if we're going to use that analogy. So this is really important because this is the essence of your brand, of your business. It's essentially the value that you're bringing to the world with your product or your service, and how are you pitching it. So that's that pink middle box. Then if we think about the infrastructure, that's the yellow to the left. So this is the how, the with who, and all those questions that are the inner workings of your business. What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And then how are you doing it with what resources? So then if we go to the right, those are finances. So the green box is broken down into the cost and the revenue. So this is the reality. It's saying, you know, how are you going to make this work? You have the vision, you have these inner workings of your business, but we need to talk also about the cost and the streams of revenue, and how are you evaluating your business model. And then the last, the blue, is your customers, so the people that you're serving, and how are you reaching them, and how are you building relationships with them. So these are the 4 themes. So if we take a deep dive into the value proposition, that the heart of your organism, of your body, these are the questions to be asking yourself and your team. And then we also wanted to highlight the considerations. And so I would like to take a minute to just look at the diagram on the right, because I think it gives a really nice visual of where you fit in and how to think about things. So there's what your competition does really well, and that's great. That's something you should definitely be aware of. And then there's what you do really well. You should know that inside out, and have a clear understanding of your performance in a sense. And then there's what your customer needs and cares about, and that's really important to be aware of, and that's where the buyer personas come in later. That's where we dive into how to know that. And the unique value proposition, which if you notice, doesn't touch on the competition. It just touches on what you do really well and what your customer needs and cares about. That's the intersection, because that's your unique competitive offering into the market. So you have these slides, and I think it's really important to come back and reflect on these questions. What exactly are you offering? How is it different? And how do you stand out? So then if we go into infrastructure, these are the inner workings of your business, like I mentioned. And there are three parts to it, so to speak. So you have your key partners. This is really important. At the part, we're always thinking about who we would like to be working with, so that we can spread our message even wider and leverage each other's strengths. And the Startup Greece Week is a great example of that in the Youth Entrepreneurship Club, because this is how we can get our message to the people that care the most about it. And so that's an example from our end. So thinking about your partners, thinking about your suppliers, if you're building a product, and the activities, what do they do? How can you leverage that? And how can you build off of that? So then the key activities is connected with that. It's what are you doing, and what does your value proposition need? So how are you creating that value with the activities that you're doing? And then the last is the resources. So what will you need to be successful, and what are your distribution channels to bring this out into the market and to stand out in the market? So the finances, the cost and the revenue. If I take a minute to talk about the costs on the left, it's important to think about what you're paying for. So in a business, you have your cost, your revenue, and your profit. And whatever your costs are, that's something that is deducted then from your ultimate profit. And so complementary to that, you need to also think about what's important to your business and your own values. So is your business going to be cost driven, or is it going to be one that's value driven? And an example that we want to bring and to get you thinking about that and what the difference is cost driven. What's an example of a company that's cost driven that essentially we as consumers only go to because it's selling something cheap and easy and quick? So an example there is IKEA. Let's say I'm just buying a table. I need it. It's 30 euros, and that's good enough. I just need it to have something to set something on. Or is my business going to be value driven? So value is what you're buying for the long run. It's maybe not 30 euros, a 30 euro table. Maybe it's now an 100 euro table, but it's a much better quality table, and it'll last a lot longer. So that's something in your own business to consider. Are you short term, just trying to make it out cost efficient, or, well, not cost efficient because everyone should be cost efficient, but cost reduced, or are you value driven for the long term? And then revenue. So this is your income. So how are you going to generate a revenue? Some options are selling a physical asset, a product. Are you going to charge a subscription fee? Let's say you're selling a service, or there's other options like fees for brokerage or charging for your advertising if you don't want to charge the consumer themselves. And if from your buyer personas, if you realize that they're not going to pay, then maybe you should look at charging for advertising instead. So customers, there's 3 elements here. It's your customer segments, and Lucy will deep dive into this. But just to give you a quick sense, it's who are you creating value for? So if you have an idea of what you're offering into the market, who is that for? And sometimes we have an idea and we think we know who we're creating value for, but other times there's others out there that will be surprised to know that they're actually finding a lot of value in the product that we're building. They're finding alternate uses for it. And then who are your most important customers? So really targeting certain customer segments. And the relationships, what type of relationships are you building? Is it transactional? Is it just, I'm spending 30 euros on a table and it's a one-time deal? Or are you building longer term relations with your customers? And which have you already established? And then lastly, channels. So if you know who your customer is, you have your product, how are you getting it to them? How do they know about it? And so at the port, if I were to give an example, that's where social comes in, and that's where we use our partnerships so that we can really spread the message about what we're doing. And that's something to consider for your own business. And then lastly, we wanted to share a quote. You have everything you need to build something far bigger than yourself. It's all at your fingertips. It's about how you lay it all out there, and that's where the business model canvas comes in.
Awesome. Yes, it's all at your fingertips. And on this note, we got a question from Michael that whether or not the slides will be available. So yes, they will be available, and hopefully you can add them to your arsenal of everything that you need to build your vision. And So now that Vasiliki has covered the fundamental building blocks that make a business, the 9 categories in the 4 buckets that of the business body that we went through, we will go transition into exactly how to reach those customers that you want. And awesome. Just checking the group chat. If you have any questions, just pop them in there. We can see them and we'll answer them as they come up. So building a strong brand, exactly how should you reach your audience and what does it start with? So for us, it starts with, and for most of the strong companies that you see that are familiar to you, like IKEA is a globally known brand, Coca-Cola, if you want to go narrower in the Greek market, Bank of Piraeus, Glavanitis, all of these brands are, if you see them, if you see a commercial and you don't even see their logo yet, you understand that that's part of their identity. And this is really important because they've actually successful companies deliberately establish what their identity is from day one. And so here we can see the definition of a brand identity being the message that your consumer receives from your product, your person, your company, just as we as people have an identity. I, Lucy, have a specific identity, a specific personal brand. You, George, you, Nikos, Vasiliki, everyone has an identity, and companies have an identity as well. And it's core to building that relationship on a human level in order to connect with your customers. And so all components that are related to your product, to your business, to your venture is part of the brand identity. And this part we want to emphasize because it's everything down to an email communication, a Facebook message, how you phrase something on your website, how your customer service is, the quality of your product. All of this, you want to be consistent because it's communicating who you are to your customers and the world. And so how do we build a strong identity? So before we dive into the buyer personas, we want to have a strong sense of who we are. In the same way that before we, go to a networking event or try to look for a business partner, we need a sense of understanding exactly who we are and what we bring to the table. So to create a strong brand identity, you'll want to be clear. This means being very specific and very simple. Oftentimes we have these pitches in our heads because our ideas are our babies, and we think that it's a very it's a very complex idea that we're trying to communicate. But at the end of the day, people resonate with a very clear, simple. You think IKEA, and you hear IKEA, and you think of very specific phrases. And so this is what we want to aspire to being clear and simple. And then the next pillar is being authentic. So especially in the age where everybody is connected with technology, we are consuming so much content every day. People can humans already have a sense of what's authentic, what's honest, which brands are, actually doing well, which brands are just doing marketing, whatever it might be. Core to you need to be authentic to who you are, and that honesty will show through when you're trying to build relationships with customers. And then the last key is consistency. So consistency is key because in the same way that, McDonald's doesn't use a bunch of different shades of yellow and red in their branding, it's a very clear, or Coca-Cola, right? The Coca-Cola red is like so clear, it's so consistent. This drills down as well to, again, that communication that we've mentioned. How your employee is communicating with a partner, to how your social media message is being conveyed to your audience. All of this should be consistent in order to be able to drive that connection with your customers, so that you can be easily recognized in this noisy world where we're constantly being bombarded by so much information. How will you stand out? And then how will you become recognizable? So as your brand grows, as your business grows, how will people and how will customers be able to recognize your brand? And then finally, Awareness. So all of this is so that you can drive awareness, so that you can hopefully drive more customers and drive more sales. And again, on the note of consistency, another quote, the way that you do anything is the way you do everything. So I will repeat that. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. This is especially important to keep in mind because even if you are on a human level, let's say you are trying to just get recruited by a startup, you're trying to find a job. The way that you're communicating with that email that you send to that HR director is exactly the same as, you know, a customer service or you speaking to a potential customer. That should be reflective of who you are, your vision, who you aspire to be, and also the loyalty that you are aspiring to build to drive more business. And so now we're going to transition our way into buyer personas because once you've established your vision and you have ideally filled out your business model canvas, and now you have a strong idea of what your brand is, you have your business, you have your brand. Now it's just important to keep in mind this selling attitude. You're selling something, you're selling your product, you're selling your image. If you don't have an idea and you're looking for a job, you're selling yourself. So all of this is to preface, how do we make sure that we're effectively speaking to our audiences? If it's, you know, the hiring manager at Google, or if it's, you know, the person that's looking for a table. How is IKEA reaching these customers, and how are you reaching your audience? So a question that we get often is, and this is an image that I like to use a lot, is basically like marketing seems like, and especially content marketing seems like such a vague word. Like my cousin Jackie Chan over here is like just so confused, so mind-blowing. What is marketing? Everyone talks about it. Is it actually essential to the business? So it is. And in order to have effective relationships with your customers, you need to take marketing as the vehicle to get there. And in order to have marketing be a very well-oiled vehicle that doesn't break down, we need to overcome these mistakes. So oftentimes, and we see this with different companies, with clients, and with ourselves sometimes, right? So like we think, of course, we have the best ideas, and we do in many cases, but a lot of the times when it comes to marketing, it's bridging those ideas and communicating them in a way that the audience will care. Because of course, if you are a new product, if you're a new brand, people haven't heard of you yet. And the way that you're telling the story to yourself, to your team, to your co-founder, is something that you already understand because it came from your brain. But your audience is thinking, I haven't heard of this person, I haven't heard of this brand before, what value are they adding? So this is one common mistake. And then this is coupled with just general challenges of the industry. There's a lot of chaos and there's a lot of noise. So you hear leads, you hear conversions, you hear SEO, you hear all of these buzzwords as well. And it can seem very, very buzzwordy and very overwhelming. And that on top of this same problem that we had before, where we're marketing for ourselves as the people with the great ideas and the people who understand the product, it kind of causes a little bit of a messaging disconnect. And as a result, you'll lose awareness and you'll lose the attention of people that could have been lasting customers for you. So how do we overcome all of this, and how do we resolve this? By developing buyer personas. So this is the second framework and the last framework for today. And the slides will be available again, and also the worksheets we'll send around. So you'll have them, you can print them out, you can brainstorm and write down all of your ideas. So this next framework for buyer personas is helping us overcome this next common mistake, which is, okay, great, Lucy, like you're telling us to speak to our audience, but our audience is everyone. It's very difficult when you are trying to market to everyone, because if we don't have an organized sense of how we're going to communicate, and we haven't prepared in the same way that if you go to a meeting with an investor, you'll want to prepare a pitch that is also going to resonate with them specifically, right? So you want everybody to, you can't be marketing to everyone. You need to have a very select, niche, and specific, organized way of approaching your audience groups. And so here's where we'll go into this framework, which is the buyer persona framework. Very simple. As you can see, it's like a very plain table. There's nothing complex about the layout of it. And at the core of it, it's supposed to be simple because every business can typically organize their customer base into 3 to 5 personas that they are trying to sell into. And so personas, how they're categorically grouped, for example, if you are a technology company, could be, you know, somebody that is like a marketing manager, and then you might be trying to also sell to the chief marketing officer. So the way that you're speaking to these two people will be very different, right? One is very, very senior, another is more beginner. And if we take the IKEA example, then a persona could be, you know, just the new homeowner, the young homeowner that's trying to cut costs and furnish their new apartment, their new flat. And that's one persona. Another persona is probably a startupper, right? Where, you know, if you're going to open up a office and you want to furnish the office with affordable but simple and sleek furniture, then you will want to use IKEA, perhaps. And then so on and so forth for personas 3, 4, and 5. Depending on your business, it could be a little less, it could be a little more. But the whole point here is to understand that the way that we're speaking to persona 1 is not going to be exactly the same as persona 2. And that's very normal. And that's actually the secret to how you will be able to kind of capture that attention across all of the audience that you're trying to capture. And so the considerations that you'll want to keep in mind as you build out the personas are these 3 buckets that you see right here on the left. So at the very simple core of it, background and demographic. Fundamental things that have been around since marketing was invented or marketing was coined to be marketing. So things like age and gender, what's their experience, perhaps if you are doing lead generation, which we've worked with clients on as well, trying to figure out who are the people that we actually want to be trying to start a conversation with. Who should we be cold emailing? Maybe they don't all have the same titles, but there's different variations of titles for a persona. And then at the next bucket, underneath the background information, you'll want to understand their specific role and needs. If you're marketing to an individual consumer, perhaps in the case of IKEA or furniture shopping, what are their pain points that you as a furniture company can address? If you are a software, if you've developed some sort of product that you're trying to sell into a business, you'll want to understand what are the challenges that this person is facing at work that your software could actually help to make their life better. And then finally, behaviors and identifiers, which is pretty straightforward as well, but it's important to actually write it out because you start to see that we as humans have different communication methods, right? Like you might prefer to communicate on Messenger, I might prefer to communicate on email, somebody might prefer to communicate on Instagram. All of this is really important because if you are spending time building a product, creating content, devoting energy and time to finding people, then you also want to make sure that you're reaching those people where they live online, or maybe they prefer to get mailers, what have you. So understanding these 3 buckets, the background and demographic, the role and needs, and the behavior and identifiers for each of your personas is going to be the key to unlocking what's inside of their minds so that you can kind of speak to their challenges and communicate exactly why you are a necessary addition to their life or their work. And then on top of this, after you've developed your personas, it's important to add that little bit of magic because at the end of the day, people aren't buying goods and services, they're buying relationships, they're buying the story that you tell, and they're buying the magic that they believe your product or service will bring into their lives. And so now we will transition into the wrap-up section, because we have about like 20 minutes left. So if you have any questions, again, just message them, and I'll pass it over to Vasiliki to chat through all of some resources that we really like here at the Port, and that we also refer to a lot of students and entrepreneurs like yourselves to help develop your ideas.
Cool. So, yep. So we can start with the most general landscape. So these are the local communities, the meetups that we are really fond of, and they're all throughout Greece, Athens, Thessaloniki. Yeah, so here's a list of the different communities that are out there for you to be a part of, and depending on your interests or your background, there's a community that you can join and that you can exchange ideas, thoughts, challenges with the other members. And then if you're in the beginning stage and you're looking for a place to incubate and to build out your idea and your vision, we wanted to list out those resources as well. So these are some of the incubators and the co-working spaces that are opportunities to connect with other people that are have the same mission and the same drive that you do. So then there's also the resources in terms of job seekers. So one of the largest Facebook groups is Startup Jobs in Greece. We're fans of this because it's a really great community where people are sharing opportunities that are out there if you're looking to change up your skill set, or Lucy was speaking to the different environments that you've been a part of. So if you're looking to broaden your exposure, then these are jobs are highlighted in here that might be of interest. And at the Port, we are also offering different resources that can guide you beyond this workshop. We don't think that you should be in this alone, and so we've built some key frameworks and resources that are at your fingertips that you can download or you can follow us to receive. So we have our guides and templates. You had today a really unique opportunity to deep dive into what we share on our website with us. So we have these guides and templates for download on our website. There's many more. There's a resume template. There's a pitch deck template. So take a look at those if there's more that you would like to know about. We also have a local events calendar. And so that's for you to stay up in the know about everything that's going on. We try to consolidate all the different exciting events and speakers and the conversations that are out there so that you can be a part of that. And then we talked about the job seeker resources, but on our end, we have, like I mentioned, the resume template, and there's some best practices, because like Lucy mentioned, you're not only selling your brand and your product, you're many times selling yourself. And so that needs to be at the forefront of all of your exchanges with people and business, other business, the business community. So this month, this is a really exciting event that we've put together. And so we have a series called hashtag Thought Imports, and this is our blogs. Essentially, we interview different thought leaders out there in Greece and in the US. And so this is our live version of that. It's a fireside chat, so to speak. So it'll be a conversation between Lucy and a different thought leader in very different parts of the business with very different backgrounds. and we're starting this in May. I can't believe it's already the beginning of May. This is next week. This is starting next week in May, every Tuesday and Thursday. So like we mentioned, sales is a huge thing, huge skill to build. That's on May 12th. And then we talk about law with Elizabeth Ragavanis. We talk about e-commerce then the week after. So there's something for everyone here. So definitely take a look and RSVP.
And we did this quote. Just to add on to this as well, part of our goal is to connect you guys. I think this, like, Startup Greece Week is a fantastic resource that you have already tapped into in terms of meeting local entrepreneurs, local investors, different local resources like us in terms of the different workshops that you're signed up for. Our goal is also to connect you with, if you are building a product that is going to scale, or you're hoping will scale and reach other markets, we are here for you as well. So take a look through, you'll have these slides after. Sign up for this event if it looks interesting. It gives you direct access to these people that are experts in their fields. Again, in sales, in e-commerce, if you have a product that you're trying to take online, personal branding with an executive coach. If you're trying to incorporate your business in the States, we have a lawyer that's on the series as well. And it's going to be a very intimate conversation like this one. So you have direct access to them and get the knowledge, or whatever knowledge that you are looking for. So again, to emphasize that you have everything you need to build something that is far bigger than yourself. And I think it's amazing to see. So I remember even back in 2017 when I first arrived on the Greek tech scene, it was a budding community, and now it's so incredible to see initiatives like Startup Greece Week and just the ecosystem. All of the communities that Vasiliki mentioned are growing exponentially. So really awesome, and really we feel really privileged to be able to share this space and this time with you, and hopefully share some knowledge that you can take back to your business and grow. So we thank you for your time, and we wanted to leave, we don't see any questions, but we wanted to leave the last 15 minutes in case people wanted to turn on their cameras or turn on, oh, we have some. 5 minutes on. Got it. Okay. Great. So good. We have 5 minutes left. And in case anybody has, I guess that's enough time for one question or two questions if you have them. Otherwise, we'll wrap early. Silence. Anything else to add, Vasiliki, that we want to call out?
No, I don't have anything more to add. I think maybe the questions will come in once people try out the worksheet and the 2 worksheets for themselves, and once you start thinking about it for your own business. So we're happy to stay in touch, and follow us at Go to the Port across Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, so that we can, and Instagram, so that we stay in touch, and we're here if you need any help.
And you have our email, you'll have all of our emails and contact information as well. So we love hearing from you, and we're here to, like Vasiliki and I said throughout this presentation, we're here to support you. So any questions you might have, just find us, and
there's 3 questions, Lucy.
Oh, there are. Oh, wow.
At the same time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, guys. Should we go? Sorry.
Well, why did you choose Greece? There, you have an article out there about that. Unless you want to give a quick sentence on it.
Yeah, a quick sentence. I think it's where it's such an emerging market and a developing startup ecosystem, and there's so much potential to go in place. I get the question often that, you came from New York City. It's a very much more like resource filled market, and that's very true, but at the same time it's also becoming very saturated, and we take a lot for granted in terms of what we have available to us. And in Greece, I chose to start my business here, and I chose to stay here because there's a tangible hope that, and a tangible optimism, and also tangible like progress that you can feel, that you can even in like in conversations like this, that Greece and technology and startups is the way forward, and how Greece will pave its next legacy. And I think that is really powerful. And then also, I'm Chinese American, so Greece kind of resonates with my soul a lot, in being, and my family kind of being one of the other longest civilization in the world. And great, please can you make, okay, so I think we're out of, no, we have 2 minutes left. Next question. How do we approach potential sponsors and investors as personas? Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first, definitely separate them in the columns. So one is a potential sponsor and one is an investor. I would do some research on exactly potential sponsors and investors. Oh, so trying to get funding. Got it. Okay. So kind of doing your research in terms of the types of investors that are out there, because there's also, depending on your business, there's specific investments for different stages of companies, for different industries. There's like social impact funds, there's grants. Doing your research in terms of dividing out and, sponsors, like you had said, doing your research and then prioritizing which are the 3 to 5 categories of investors that you want to go after, and then making sure that, of course, you've done your job well in terms of building a strong pitch deck, a strong maybe MVP, minimum viable product, and then pitching it in a way that that the investors will find connects with their mission as an investment fund, because typically they have, like we said before, have different themes that they invest across, whether it's just all early stage businesses, whether it's all businesses in Greece or all businesses in retail, finding the message that will resonate with them, and that will also prove that you are a company that is going to bring returns and be sustainable and grow. Oh, thanks. Great, we have 5 more minutes. We got our time extended. Thank you, John. So let's see. Please, can you talk
from Sodiria? Yeah, Terry.
The question is, can you talk about the value proposition and how we can make specific? You want to take this one, Vasiliki?
I was thinking if you had any thoughts on that.
Okay. Yeah. Great. I'll start, and if you have anything to add. So how can we talk about the value proposition and make it specific? That's a great question. I would write down exactly, so an exercise we actually do with clients a lot is, there's a questionnaire that we send out to, if you have like different founders, or if you have different teammates, or it's just you, like just answering the question of like, what are you providing? I would even, to train yourself, you can even record it's essentially the elevator pitch, right? You start with the elevator pitch, and then you read it back to yourself, you listen to it, and then you kind of test it out with different people. And that is like you communicating your value proposition is also going to be kind of a trial and error situation, where your value proposition at the core is what you're building, what services you offer, but then it will also kind of evolve as you take it out into the world and people give you feedback as to whether or not it's actually valuable for them, right? So that specificity, how it gets more specific, is ideally you have something that you like have written down as your value proposition on your website, on your pitch deck, and then it becomes more specific the more feedback that you get, and also the more that you develop your product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So okay, that got me thinking. So I have 2 things to add. The first is that it's really important, like Lucy mentioned, to think about the value, but value only really comes from things that you're solving for people. So it's not a nice to have. It's not about just creating something that's what's the word? Kind of like fabricated. It's about really pinpointing challenges in people's lives and helping them with a solution. So think about that also for your value proposition, is what is the pain point for people out there, and how are you addressing it? And then the second bit is, when you think about value proposition, is your competition. So if I read your value proposition, I don't want to think, oh, IKEA already does that, or I don't want to think, I have the solution already, this doesn't speak to me. So it's really important to know your competitive landscape, so that your value proposition is very different from theirs, because otherwise I as a reader will disregard whatever you're saying if it's very similar to what others are saying.
And on that note, to piggyback off of what Vasiliki had said, it's also fine if you get that question, right? Like if you get that question of what are you doing? How are you different than IKEA? IKEA is the example that we use. It might not be very relevant. How are you different than how is Zoom different than Google Hangouts? If you're, if you're the founder of Zoom, that question, like Vasiliki had mentioned, you'll get, and then that will help you hone how you're communicating your value proposition. It will help you kind of develop your business strategy. Even maybe you did decide, you're like, oh, I am doing something that's too similar to them. What is how can I slightly pivot my value proposition so that it is something that becomes more valuable? And then also referencing back to the buyer personas worksheet, you need to have answers to all of these objections that come up, because you will, rejection is part of life. And so you are going to get questions that are like, well, why would I go with you? Why would I purchase that? And you as a business owner, as a founder that's going to become stronger with these questions, with these challenges, will develop answers to all of the pushback that you may receive.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I think that's a wrap then. Thank you again, everyone, for spending your Monday afternoon with us, especially as Greece is slowly starting to open up, if all of you are based in Greece. And we look forward to staying in touch. So we will send you'll get all of the information, all of the deck, all of the worksheets, and all of the fun stuff that we have walked through today.
Cool.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Startup Greece Week. Have a good rest of your week.
Bye, everyone.